If you want to learn how to read a crochet pattern, then you're in the right place. I'm going to break it down today so you can make those beautiful crochet projects you've had your eyes on. Hi, I'm Taylor. I'm a crochet designer, and people ask me all the time, how do I read a crochet pattern? To the unfamiliar, crochet patterns look a bit like high school algebra, which I was terrible at. What do all of these abbreviations in parentheses mean? Well, after today, you're gonna know. Before we get into it, do me a favor and like this video so I can help more people just like you learn crochet the simple way. And don't forget to subscribe. I have a playlist full of free crochet patterns like how to crochet a doormat, so you don't want to miss out on that. Let's start by talking about the anatomy of a crochet pattern. If you dig this template, you can actually purchase it off my website, bagsbybento.com, and fill it in with your own crochet design. So the first page of a pattern is typically a photo of the finished project and a little blurb about the item and the pattern itself. On page 2, you usually have a list of supplies. So for this one, the example is what kind of yarn, hook, and other tools you might need. And then you'll have your abbreviations, which I'm going to go over in more detail in just a little while. But here, for example, you've got a few different stitches you'll be using in the pattern with their abbreviations right next to it. Next, you have the gauge, and this lets you know whether or not you're using the right size hook whenever you're working on this project. So you would work 10 single crochets in 10 rows, and that should equal 4 inches by 4 inches. And if it does not, you'll want to either size up your hook or size down your hook. It'll also include the dimensions or in any sizes. And then the notes, typically you'll have some specific instructions letting you know if there's a video tutorial and letting you know if there are any special techniques used throughout the pattern. So for the main part of the pattern, which are the instructions, you are typically going to see it set up where it takes you row by row or round by round. Now, sometimes they'll include more than one row or round at a time because those are exactly the same. You're repeating the steps for a certain number of rows, but usually you'll see it broken up just like this. Now, I'm going to get into more detail about how to read these specific instructions in just a little while, so stick around for that. You might be wondering, why do crochet patterns have so many abbreviations? It's a language in its own. Well, when you've been doing crochet patterns for a while, you really start to appreciate the shorthand so that you don't have a 50-page crochet pattern where every row is a paragraph long. It's a lot more efficient. I have a really helpful tool for you in the description below. It's a list of standard crochet abbreviations and their definitions. Let's take this line by line and I will slowly explain what everything means. So for row 1, it says to begin with chain 11. We know that CH stands for chain because it says so in the abbreviation section of the pattern. Next, it says to SC, which is single crochet in second chain from hook. So you'll find that second chain, skipping the first one, and in each stitch across. So single crochet in second chain and in each stitch across for a total of 10 single crochets. So you'll always want to check that your number of stitches matches the one in the pattern. And I would take that row by row. Chain 1 and turn. Now, some designers prefer to put the chain 1 and turn at the end of a row, and some prefer to put it at the beginning of the next row. Both of these are technically correct, it's just a style choice, so keep an eye on that when you are reading through a new pattern. So for row 2, it says single crochet in each single crochet across, 10 single crochet total, which means that you're putting a new single crochet in each single crochet stitch from the previous row all the way across. Chain 1 and turn. Now for rows 3 through 10, we get into a little bit more complex reading because it's using asterisks. So for the asterisks, that means that you are repeating anything between the two asterisks more than one time, usually to the end of the row, unless otherwise stated. So it says single crochet 1, chain 1, skip next stitch, single crochet 1, repeat from star to the end of the row. Now technically, this is actually a stitch called moss stitch or linen stitch, and this is just an example of how someone would use these asterisks to have you repeat instructions. Already have questions? That's okay. Put them in the comments below. I know this is a lot. You got this. Now the next thing we'll learn about pattern reading is how to read brackets. Brackets will protect something just like asterisks that need to be repeated more than once, and it will say the number of times to repeat directly after the bracket. So here we've got single crochet 1 in first chain space. I'll explain what chain spaces mean in just a moment. And then we've got something in parentheses here, which I'll explain parentheses next. In single crochet 1, repeat 4 times. So just like the asterisks, it's noting that you need to repeat this section, everything within the brackets, 4 times. Now parentheses, anything within the parentheses means that you are doing all of these steps into one stitch. So 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, all in the same stitch, which is called a shell. So if you see here, you've got single crochet in first chain space, shell in the next stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, and repeat these steps 4 times. Coffee break. Cheers. Lastly, chain space means that you skipped stitches in the previous row, which we did. We skipped the stitch here, and you're placing your stitch in that space. So it's technically not a stitch, it's a chain that you're inserting your hook into and placing a single crochet. So chain spaces can be anywhere from 1 to any number of chains, but typically more than 3 is referred to as a loop versus a chain space. Good news, we're done with all the punctuation, and now I just need to have a little chat. If you think you're going to remember all of this after watching this one time, go ahead and let yourself off the hook. This is something that takes time and practice. So go ahead and save this video and you can reference it later. Just a few more tips before we finish up here. Go ahead and read the full pattern before you dive in. You don't have to analyze it or get super in depth, but getting an overview of how the pattern is formatted and where it's going can really help prevent mistakes. Keep a photo of the finished project nearby, then you can compare your work with the work in the photo. And keep it simple. Choose projects like blankets, pot holders, and washcloths as beginner pattern projects versus clothing or something more complicated. Lastly, choose a pattern that includes a video tutorial or a lot of detailed photos. That can really help the process as well. As always, I'm available for questions. You can comment below or you can email me at bagsbybento@gmail.com. I'm also on Instagram, and we have a lot of discussions there about crochet and community. I'd love to see you over there at bagsbybento, and you can also find me on my website, bagsbybento.com. Thanks again, guys, and happy crocheting!